After more than 30 seasons, Saturday Night Live is an American cultural touchstone. But 3 decades of humor have come with a hefty dose of heartbreak. We call the number 11 story on our list Tragedies from Studio 8.
Saturday Night Live is the factory that produces comedians who end up breaking out big.
What time is it? It's looking patrol time!
Since 1975, more than 100 funny men and women have been part of the SNL cast. The early seasons of the show were famous for stories of backstage antics and drug use.
It was decadent, it was funny, it was edgy, it was strange, and all those things put together made it work.
One of the show's first breakout stars was John Belushi. From SNL's debut season in 1975, John's manic energy made him an audience favorite.
You stepped into John's world, you're like on the bullet train. You were going 200 miles an hour.
But John's intensity as a performer was partially fueled by a real-life addiction to cocaine.
A lot of comedians are actually very introverted, dark, and deep people. Cocaine gives them the lift and the courage and the adrenaline to get out and put on a show when they may not be feeling up for it.
He carried a disease, addiction. And millions of people have it.
In 1979, after just 4 seasons, the popular comic left SNL to pursue a movie career. Leading roles in classic films like Animal House and Blues Brothers cemented his status as a comedy superstar, and Belushi lived like one.
After he left the Saturday Night Live and he was doing the movies, it was a lot less of a controlled environment. He was a lot more out on his own. He was spending a lot of that time doing things that was very unhealthy for him.
The party came to a sudden and tragic end the morning of March 5th, 1982, in a West Hollywood hotel. John's body was discovered on his bed shortly after noon. An autopsy concluded that Belushi died from a fatal dose of heroin and cocaine.
By the end, the cocaine had led to heroin, which led to a cocaine-heroin combination called a speedball that was injected right into him. The drug use just spiraled out of control and consumed him.
Belushi's overdose was just the first in a string of tragedies for some of the stars of Studio 8. In October 1986, original cast member Gilda Radner was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Gilda succumbed to the disease 3 years later. After a dip in the ratings in the 80s, several new cast members revitalized Saturday Night Live in 1990.
Good Lord.
One of Studio 8's most memorable additions was a hefty force of nature from Wisconsin named Chris Farley.
I always like to make people laugh. It makes me feel good, you know. All of a sudden you get a laugh. It's like, oh my God.
Chris Farley was the new heavy-set comedian following in the footsteps of John Belushi, and he was just hysterical. He could just utter a line and give it an intensity to just rip right through your funny bone.
The comparison to Belushi was appropriate. Unfortunately, Chris and John shared more than just supersized comic chops. The comedian also suffered from an addiction to heroin and cocaine.
Friends and family of Chris had been worried about him. He was getting into drugs and drinking. He was a time bomb that was just gonna be going off.
In 1995, after 5 years, Farley left SNL. Films like Tommy Boy, Black Sheep, and Beverly Hills Ninja made Chris a bona fide comedy star. But no amount of fame or box office success could help Chris beat his addictions.
The problem with Chris Farley, he's mixing heroin, which is in essence a drug that causes respiratory depression. Cocaine, on the other hand, is a stimulant. And cocaine is like making your heart go into a dead sprint.
On the night of December 18, 1997, just 6 weeks after hosting SNL, Chris Farley was found dead in his Chicago apartment. Like his hero John Belushi, Farley's death was the result of a drug overdose. And, like John, Chris was just 33 when he died.